Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Jeremy, founder of QuickMail.io.
And this is Jack from emailsthatsell.com.
In this episode, Jack and I are going to look at the last weapon of influence that Cialdini mentioned in his book, Influence. You'll learn what it is, plenty of examples of how to use it successfully in a cold email campaign, and what to do if you just started and have nothing to rely on yet. Enjoy. Today, we're going to look at an influence factor, weapon of influence, the social proof.
And I think this is our final weapon of influence to cover on our podcast. It's also, I think, one of our favorite ones to use. So in a few ways, maybe we've saved the best for last. Hopefully, you'll be able to take quite a few things away from this episode because social proof makes cold emails better. Trust us, you'll see why.
Yeah, for sure. And honestly, Jack and I were looking at, have we done all the influence factors, a weapon of influence? And we said, oh, we haven't done social proof. And we just couldn't believe it. But I think part of it is because it's very closely related to authority as well.
Yeah, it is, Jeremy. But there is some differences and certainly some unique case studies that we're going to talk about that even if you've mastered, let's say, using authority, you'll be able to bring in social proof to make your cold emails even better.
Absolutely. Do you want to sort of define what social proof really is?
Yeah, I will. And this one, I want to tell a quick story to illustrate what social proof is. So have you ever walked by the sidewalk and seen someone playing guitar and there's the guitar case out with, a couple dollars or a couple euros already sprinkled in the case, Jeremy? I'm sure you have.
I think I know where you want to go with that.
Yeah, this is social proof. It's dressing a guitar case, shows people that putting dollars in the case is the right thing to do. Why? Because when a lot of people are doing something, it usually is the right thing to do. So that's sort of a mental shortcut that tells us, oh, okay, these people have done it, so it's probably a good idea. That's social proof.
Yeah, in a tech world, it's the idea that 2 million people can't be wrong, if you have 2 million people using your service.
There you go. It's really the simple fact that people look at the behavior of others to determine their own. I mean, we even see examples of social proof used in comedy sitcoms or TV sitcoms, like adding a laugh track that they used to do a lot in the 90s. Like my wife loves Friends, and there's laugh tracks built into every single joke in the show. It sounds annoying, but they've done studies that show that we actually wait for the laugh track before deciding to laugh. So it's not that we're laughing because the joke is funny all the time. It's we laugh because we hear this laugh track that tells us, oh, most people have said this is funny. Even if we know a laugh track is fake, it still works. So it's very powerful.
Our brain just wants to reach a conclusion quickly. So rather than going through, is it funny or not, it just it piggybacks on other people's conclusion already to bypass this sort of decision process. So again, if you say 2 million people can't be wrong, you're not going to go and doubt the process of finding a conclusion from 2 million people. You're just going to say, okay, well, I go with it. Obviously, it's completely, stupid in a sense that it could be effectively that 2 million people are really wrong, and therefore you just added one more people who will be wrong. But, that's the idea that you just draw on other people's conclusion.
Correct. And I think what's going on in every influence factor we've mentioned here, whether it's authority or scarcity or liking, I think it comes down to we are lazy thinkers. In general, we look for shortcuts to make decisions for us. I think that's sort of the sad fact about being a human is we actually are not in the driver's seat for most of the decisions we make. So we're talking about social proof so that you can use to leverage this to your favor to get more positive replies out of your cold email campaigns. So
there are a lot of ways we can do that. Jack, do you want to walk us through some really concrete example of how we could use social proof in a cold email?
Okay, so let's borrow using popular brands that you've worked with to increase your social proof inside your cold email. You've probably got a website. On that website, you've probably got logos of customers and brands that you've worked with. if you just take those exact logos and brands and drop them into an email sentence, you are now using social proof to show your prospects that you are a legitimate company that has been already approved by companies similar to them. That's the easiest way to use social proof. It's not the most powerful. If you want to take that up one level, you want to select popular brands that are similar to people that you're reaching out to, because social proof works better when you say not only are other people using this, but people very similar to you or companies very similar to yours have signed off on this and they're using it to get XYZ results. Similarity can supercharge social proof, especially in cold emails.
Okay, what's next?
Using testimonials. So just like name dropping brands you've worked with, adding a snippet, and I'm talking 1 or 2 sentences from a testimonial of someone who's raving about your product or service works wonders in cold email campaigns. Just make sure to not ramble on with a testimonial, because you haven't earned the right to, pitch them a 2-page email. Instead, just take the best part of the testimonial and drop it in. Ideally, a testimonial can mention concrete stats to show where they were before they used your product or service and where they were after. So it's not just one person's opinion. Instead, it's a one person saying exactly what they were able to achieve with your help.
Okay, so let's say I'm still brand new here. I haven't worked with known brands. I don't have much testimonials, or let's say I don't have any testimonials. What else can I do to use social proof?
Here's the thing, actually, Jeremy. So there's other weapons of influence that you can use to your advantage, even if you're starting from square one. But social proof, by definition, leverages other companies or people that you've worked with, and in order to establish yourself or your brand as a reputable company that they don't have to think about, is this a legitimate email from a legitimate company? So actually, I'm going to say if you've worked with 0 people, you may not use social proof in your cold emails. Do I have that completely wrong? Is there something that you can think of, Jeremy, that can help leverage social proof?
What about this CTA, Jack? 90% of people I sent this email to responded already. Reply yes if you want to know why.
That's creative. I suppose that's already a stat that you're pulling from other people. So here's another way to look at it, Jeremy, because I'd imagine even if someone is just starting out and they're listening to this episode, I imagine that you can find one testimonial from one person or one company you've worked with. And if that's the case, my advice to you is to go find 5 companies or 5 people that are extremely similar to the person who left you a testimonial and write a cold email that mentioned this testimonial and send it to them. You'll notice that if you start small, saying, okay, well, I've gotten a positive testimonial from, let's say, people in the finance industry who are in Sacramento and have 50 employees, well, go find other financial companies in the same town and mention that testimonial to them. Because if they happen to know the company that mentioned this good word about you or your brand, it's going to work even better. So don't worry if you don't have giant companies like Amazon or Uber to drop in your cold emails. That's not important. Instead, what you can do is use some of the smaller companies, even if it's just one, and go find lookalike companies to share that with. Your testimonial or your case study that you share will go much further when you share it with people that are extremely relevant to the person who just left you the testimonial.
Yeah, I still think we can be a little bit creative with that. We don't necessarily have to give social proof to the actual product we're contacting people with, but with the benefit. So you could say, it's summer, a lot of people like skateboarding. Here's my new skateboard. Are you interested in knowing about it? Even though you may not have any client, but you bring the social proof in the activity. You can do that also with the benefit. Like 90% of the company use dashboard to explain them the best metrics on their business. Would you be interested in having 5 minutes call so we can talk about what my dashboard could actually bring to your business, kind of thing? So I still think you can be creative about using social proof and don't have to start with huge client base.
So now that you mention it, Jeremy, I believe I have seen something like this work in a sales letter. It basically was promoting some email marketing service, and it said 90% of email marketers say that creating a autoresponder helps drive sales. And that simple fact is probably what you're talking about there, right? Just basically saying this works for a lot of folks just like yourself. And let me tell you about how this can deliver exactly that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
There's a few more ways that you can leverage social proof. Ratings is one of Amazon.com's most effective way to use social proof. Is basically you're gathering in votes of current customers of products. You've already seen this, but if possible, use it in your email. So if you have a piece of software that has let's say a 4.5 rating on G2 Crowd, for example, or if your restaurant was just mentioned one of the top 10, if your plumbing service has a 5-star rating on Yelp from 100 different customers, mentioning this in an email campaign can, like we said, shortcut the decision-making process to show people immediately that you offer a great product or service. Also, the number of users works the same way. So Jeremy, you opened up with 2 million users, can't be wrong.
Yeah, I know. Terrible sentence. I really hate when I see that.
But it works, right?
It does.
Even if it can be wrong, we don't really think that way. Which brings me to another interesting point. You may be tempted to bring in lots of statistics to back up or to use social proof in your cold email. Studies have shown that stories actually perform better when it comes to influence people than using statistics. Our minds are wired for storytelling, not so much for digesting numbers or statistics. So if possible, try and wrap your statistic into a testimonial or a case study. So instead of just saying, this has helped improve sales by 40%, you may say that XYZ company in a similar industry used this to go from 100 customers to 10,000. Now they were able to secure funding or whatever the end story to that is. So humanize your statistics by putting it into a short case study or a short story with 1 or 2 sentences to make it a little bit more impactful.
All right, that sounds cool. Any other thing you can think of, Jack?
I'm going to share an email here that is promoting a CRM that is used within G Suite. Okay, so the email reads, "Hey, first name, I noticed that your team is using G Suite to support your business at company. We work with thousands of G Suite customers to help them drive more sales with the CRM their team will actually use." So notice that they brought in, we work with thousands of G Suite customers. 2 things you want to notice here. First, they mentioned how many users they had. Quote, 2 million users can't be wrong. It works. But finally, notice they were targeting this cold email to people using G Suite. And their cold email says thousands of G Suite customers use this. So it makes it sort of supercharged, if you will, because not only are they saying lots of people use this, but lots of people just like yourself or your organization use this. So in my opinion, this is a great way to use social proof in cold emails. Again, just a quick recap, dropping the names of large brands, related companies that you've worked with, always a great idea. Using testimonials that rave about your product or service, ratings, and finally, take a look at your website because you're probably already using quite a bit of social proof there. If you need inspiration, see what logos you've included, what testimonials, maybe other stats that you want to use for social proof in your cold emails. Typically, starting your research on your actual homepage is a great place to get ideas for ways to drop social proof into your cold emails.
There you go. Thanks, Jack.
Okay, so in this social proof episode, we learned that people look at the behavior of others to determine their own. Why? Because when a lot of people are doing something, it's usually the right thing to do. Luckily for us, we can leverage this in cold email. You can supercharge your social proof by mentioning companies similar to the ones that are already on your prospect list. The next thing we learned was that stories are stronger than stats when it comes to influencing people. We're wired for storytelling, not for stats. So whenever possible, turn your statistics into mini case studies that tell a story of how a company has used your product or service to get what they wanted. And finally, you can supercharge your social proof in cold email by using companies or name dropping others that are very similar to the ones that are on your prospect list.
Hey, cold emailer.
Yeah, you.
If you got some value from this episode, give us a high vibe by sharing a 2-sentence review on iTunes.
Or Stitcher or TuneIn. That works too.
It's a quick way to help other growth-minded folks like us find this podcast.
So they can send awesome emails.
And make everyone's inbox a better place. Thanks.